Hi, I'm Amy Voce, and you're listening to the Build Up podcast brought to you by the Federation of Master Builders. I'm joined in the studio by my co-hosts, Aidan Cropper, Managing Director of IPSUM UK Limited in Nottinghamshire, and David Gutierrez, Director of Nest Building Group in Surrey, both proud FMB member companies. Now, today we're celebrating success and everything that entails. But before we get started, don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss any of our upcoming episodes. In this episode, we're thrilled to be joined by Dorian Bowen of Project One. Project One are an award-winning building company. They've taken home both the kitchen project and large renovation awards at the 2025 Cymru Master Builder Awards. And they've been shortlisted for the SBID Global Design Awards for 12 years running. Hello to Dorian, who joins us now. Welcome to the podcast. And might I add, Dorian, just to sort of set up the scene at the moment, you're joining us live from the back of a limo. Is that correct?
Live from the back of a limo is the only way, huh? Yeah, it's really nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Whereabouts are you right now? Are you on the road? You're travelling somewhere exciting?
I'm in between projects. I'm a little bit outside Bristol, so I'm in an area of outstanding natural beauty, and this is my life is lived in the back of a car, so it's good to have a nice one.
Well, that shows your success. So congratulations on the award wins. How did that feel for you and your team?
I was really disappointed. We won 5 last time. I was almost in tears.
And how many was it this time then?
Yeah, no, it was 2. Yeah, it's really nice to be recognised, and the projects that won this year were 2 projects that were really close to our hearts. One of them was 8 years in the making. So yeah, it's really nice to be recognised, and it's a nice affirmation for everybody. Just like we did the right thing, and we got a result. So yeah, really happy.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's rewind a little bit. How did you first get into the trade?
Gosh, I was fortunate enough to waste my entire 20s on travel, booze, and drugs. I didn't really have much of a career going. I had always been into buildings. It was a passion of mine from when I was a child. My dad had a painting and decorating company. So I was sort of a kind of late entry into it. I actually did a plumbing course. It was sort of around the time where Pimlico plumbers were sort of rising up. The only trouble with being a plumber is you have to plumb, and I wasn't very good at it. So I worked out early on. I thought it'd be really good to actually start a company. It was in the middle of a recession, so I kind of worked out the formula. I was like, right, if I get work and do it well, we'll be able to build a company. So yeah, it was a sort of by default procedure.
So what was it that sparked that move? Was it just the fact you wanted to just build your own empire, or you didn't want to be doing the trades work as much anymore? You wanted to be sort of behind the scene running the show?
Yeah, it was. Gosh, I think with a lot of these things, it's a lot of it just sort of fell in place. But it was, I'd always wanted to produce beautiful buildings. I'd always been interested in architecture. I'd always been a Frank Lloyd Wright fan. Some of the work there just inspired me, and I always felt something inside with it. And I always had a set idea in my head of how a building should look. So from a really young age, I could recognize the cleanliness. I always felt at home in an art gallery with just that really tight bottom line, a really tight high line, and just peace and serenity in between. So yeah, it was working out. I wanted to do big projects. I wanted to do better projects. And it was working out the formula on how to give people what they wanted while making money, while building a company that employed people. And I'm not an architect, and I'm not an interior architect, and I'm not an interior designer. But they're all of the points that I'd always been really passionate in, but obviously I don't have a qualification in those things. So it was a constant journey to be able to say, right, what's the least lowest wage out of all those professions, and how can I employ that person? And then how can we build on their skill set to get to the next stage with the company? So the ultimate goal was to have, I suppose, like a large office, with maybe like 10 or 12 people in. And the ideas start from a center point and go out to each section. And then that gets formulated into build plans, and then ultimately sent down to the projects. And part of it was also to create like a client experience, not a somebody finding a builder. You connect with somebody through the initial brief. If the budget's correct and you think they're going to want the type of project that works for us, because what we do is not for everyone. It's quite a set specific design format that we employ. And then once we'd sort of highlighted those people and the budgets were correct, it was basically to take them through a journey. So it would be a bit more like having a private shopping experience in Harrods rather than dealing with a local builder or an architect that can't deliver it. So from day one, it was the sort of name project one. It was kind of thought up on the spot, but we were thinking like, right, it was kind of like, right, everybody is going to be made to feel like we're just doing one project and it's their project.
You guys have talked a lot about building trust in clients and how important that is. It's such a huge investment for a client. And also we talk a lot about how you build your business, how you grow it. So what have been some of the bigger challenges along the way for you?
I think the biggest one was dealing with success, dealing with the sort of large turnovers and learning to build, sort of getting that work, the personal life balance and the work balance and being able to stay sane. So I think at one point I think we had 26 live projects and they ranged across 4 countries. And 2 of the projects alone, the total project values were about 500 million. So it was balancing being like working in central London in like Belgrave Square and having the enormous complications. It's got the same listing as St. Paul's Cathedral. And then at the same time, we were building one of the biggest houses certainly the most expensive house in Dubai at the time. But then also, I think at the same time we were doing like a homeless shelter in a Welsh village called Talbot, where they wanted to have like a drop-in food kitchen, plus all our other sort of residential ones, and also a project in the south of France. And it was creating the infrastructure to be able to absorb the stresses that those projects created. And I don't think there's a format for that. And there was nobody, I never met somebody that said, listen, this is the formula. The successes tend to happen really quickly. And it was putting the infrastructure in behind it and also actually understanding money. So like, what is a director's loan account? What is a Section 455 tax? Why do I suddenly have a £500,000 tax bill? Should I really have bought a Lamborghini? Like, what is happening with all this money? So I found that bit really difficult because there doesn't seem to be a school of building. There doesn't seem to be a school for doing vast structural works. Like, an engineer can give you the calculations, but in terms of actually adjusting a building, taking hundreds of tons of a building and inserting 20-meter steels and understanding cranes and telehandlers. I think it was just the ability to learn on the job and absorb everything as it happened. And it really helped not having like a family. And work just being life, just accepting, right, that the people I work with are going to become my family, my clients are going to become my social friends, and yeah, I don't. It was a roller coaster, and I didn't enter any of it with a bit of knowledge that I have today. Everything was kind of learned on the job. So I think just infrastructure, understanding what's needed to absorb the stresses, and understanding finance and having a really good accounts team and not just one. Having an in-house bookkeeper, having an external, really like successful bookkeeping company, and then having an accounts company to audit everything, watch the quarterlies and do the end of years and advise on tax and VAT. I think the money is the really dangerous bit because it can take 3 years for everything to kind of catch up. And I've watched a lot of people fall at that hurdle. Sometimes you're just not doing as well as the numbers say, and sometimes you're doing better.
It's interesting you say that, Dorian, actually, because that's the thing that sort of has probably stunted my growth a little bit, just in terms of, it was quite, I was quite interested to ask you how you first sort of took that step into expanding your company, because I've kind of expanded my company to a point, but then obviously, as you say, you need that financial support to understand exactly where your investments are going and how you're going to get a return on the investment. Just in terms of, like you say, having an office with 10 people in, did you from the outset make that investment speculatively, or did you kind of sort of grow up to that point?
Do you know this? It's a really interesting question. It was my format for this business model because I've been through 2 recessions. Like I class my business model as collapsible. So anything that exists today, whether it's an office, a piece of equipment, a car, a storage house, and even my own personal life, with my mortgage and the things that I do with my wife and kids, I make sure that everything's collapsible within a 3-month period. And the ability with this is to look at something, and each section of the business has to be monetized. And yes, it is speculative. So it's right. I'm going to employ an architect, right? Why am I going to employ an architect, right? We're doing a lot of planning permissions, and I'm outsourcing a lot of this work. And the packs are going out to the client at 5K. We're making like 30% on them. How many are we doing? And can we do this? Can we do this in house? Can we get this continued growth? And then employing that person with a view for having like a 3-month contract and thinking, right, can we start to monetize this? And then also when you get that person, somebody taught me the sort of 80-20 model, because I was, I think it was about 2017, and I was literally going insane. I was working 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, living in hotels, and I cried a lot. I used to get in at night, I'd put my head on the desk, and I would just cry, and I just wasn't coping, but I also didn't have the sense to stop it. And I thought, I've got to get help here, And I spoke to somebody. They were one of the partners in. They're a leader in their industry, And originally, I was looking for a mentor to pay, and they were part of a program. And the guy said, "Oh, I think I can really help you." And he explained this 80-20 thing. He said, "Look, you've got to find what your 20% is, what you're amazingly good at, and then remove the 80% of everything you're doing and put that out to other people, and then find their 80-20 and find out what they're really good at doing." So it's the foremost to find somebody, yes, invest in it, but then further find out what that person can do to monetize them even further. And as long as you're watching that and building it slowly, it doesn't seem to be that it can fail. But then also people can alter. People's personal circumstances can alter, their ambitions can alter. So it's also the ability to be able to replace people where necessary and needed, and not be sentimental about it, but also be, loving, kind, tolerant, and compassionate with everybody else's needs. So yeah, I think everything is speculative, but I think really slowly, just done on a 1-by-1 basis, and build each part of the business.
Yeah, so it's like calculated steps. But to be honest, everything you've just said is really relatable. I'm sure it is to you as well, David.
Yeah. No, I'm mesmerised. I'm listening.
Same.
Listening to the journey.
But there's quite so many similarities from what you've both told me about how you've scaled your businesses or grown and started, and and the stresses as well. You would never expect when you start a business your biggest stresses would be how managing success and money, and that's exactly
really
what you said previously.
Really related to that. Yeah, that sort of feeling alone in that confused state, even though you're on top of the world, you can't describe it, can you?
Yeah, I found it a really lonely journey personally, and yeah, it was. I think just that money thing and really understanding it's all these other things pop into my head. The first person I ever asked for my help, they said, look, they said, like, remember, turnover is vanity and profit is sanity. And I had a very fragile ego and really low self-esteem. So there were a lot of things that happened in the business that really appealed to me personally. And part of the big thing was learning to be a person and grow out of those things and see everything for what it was, rather than how it made me feel. And understanding that, like, these are, we play with people's lives, basically, in this industry. We take their family home, we take their life savings, and we either give them a place where they can express themselves and be happy with their family, or we end up on, crime watch or the ferret for ruining their lives. It's a really hard journey. And then also the people that we work with, my ethos from day one, I remember we employed somebody, and I listened to them. I went into the office, and the way they were speaking to somebody it really upset me, And I said, "Oh, look, can you explain, why you would talk to another person like that?" And they explained that, that it was a supplier, and they hadn't done this and they hadn't done that, and I tried to explain to them. I said, "Look, after the amount of time that I've been here, my journey, has been." I've met the same people consistently up and down, and everyone has good days and everyone had bad days, and although we're on a high now, we're eventually, we're going to come back down. This is not linear. It's a roller coaster in terms of success and projects and what each person can do, and you're going to meet all those people again. So it's really important, like, to be nice to people and to have a really good business, a really good business ethos and personal ethos. So, and doing those things seem to be, I think if you do good things happen, right?
Yeah, it's karma, isn't it? It's real. It's strange. I remember speaking to a client a couple of years ago, and these clients would probably do years and years and years of research if they were to invest 50 to 100,000 or a couple 100,000 into, let's just say, the stock exchange or a random company. Yet it's sad that they won't even do their own due diligence or real background work on a builder. Sometimes just go for a cheaper option. We are playing with people's money and lives and their life savings, but when it comes to a build, all that risk factor goes out the window for some of these people, and it's crazy. You are right. If you are compassionate about that, and that means something to you, that you are a good person from the start. You've got got the right intentions.
Yeah, I feel as though I've got exactly the same ethos, and I think the company is built on, being nice to people and gaining that trust. How have you managed to sort of pass that ethos to your people as well, your employees and the people around you? Because that's the bit that obviously can sort of
you're only as good as your staff, basically.
Yeah, basically stop growth, or stop you taking that next step.
There's a human condition called object permanence, and it's the current reality I'm living in. My brain will give me the information that this is forever, and it seems to be like that with people that I work with. And I think the greatest improvement for not just the company, the clients, but for myself personally, was learning when to stop. Because I've always believed that if I worked with somebody long enough, I would be able to get them to act in a way that I think is acceptable. That is what I learned over a long period of time, is that I can't change anyone. And I think it's trusting your own judgment to start with when you meet someone. And my judgment's terrible. I'm literally like, I'm a salesman's dream. I can meet someone, they can tell me something, and I'll be like, "Oh my God, this guy is amazing." And I put them on the site as a site manager, and ring up, they'd be like, "Dorian, what is wrong with you? Like, this guy is unbelievably bad." I'm like, no, you wouldn't. You interviewed so well. And then it's just to sit down and to be able to be kind with those people and just say, "Oh, listen, why isn't this working out? Like, are you not getting what you need, like, to be happy here, to do this job?" And then just being able to, at some point, just cut people dead and just look at the bigger picture and not be afraid to do that. So people is the really hard thing. Training people well from the start. So, like, most of the people in our company today, like, so the average person probably would have been here a decade.
Wow.
And I've also worked with the other colleges. So I've worked with the Architecture College in Cardiff. So we would find students there and give them the work experience, and then they would do their 2 years work experience before they go off to do their, architect part 2 or whatever. So sort of getting people at the start of their career and sort of molding them into something, and during that process you get to learn about people, and also being interested, like actually asking people, like, what do you want? And you get to learn the difference between people that, they want a pay packet and security, and the people that are really passionate about it and want to do it well. And also listening, like actually listening to people rather than creating my own narrative and going on to site. There used to be a guy, it was in the early days, and I loved him, and everybody, they hated me for loving him. I liked this guy, you know. We would go out and we would have fun. And one day I went to site and just one person exploded, and they grabbed a hammer out of his hand and started screaming at him. And I was like, what's wrong, man? This guy's amazing. Leave him alone. And they said, Dorian, every time you come to site, he snatches a tool off somebody and starts to pretend to work. And the rest of the time, he sits there on the phone. And he'd been with us for 3 years and no one had told me. So I've got to like understand my own limitations and my own inability to see the reality placed in front of me. And at some point, I've just got to understand that, because of the speed at which I work and the speed at which we move through the projects on a daily basis, I've got to accept that I can't believe the truth that my mind tells me, and I have to ask a lot of other people.
That's really refreshing, though. And that's really refreshing in what you've said. I mean, you've mentioned a couple of things there, the 80-20 thing and recognising the bit that you're good at, and then obviously, you know, the 80% in terms of, you know, trying to get more other people in that. And there are people that, you know, I wear so many hats, and it's a case of understanding which hats fit me best, and then sort of trying to, you know, employ people around me that, and then the same with you know, sort of limitations in how you sort of, I guess, judging people on site as well. And it's really refreshing to hear, actually, and I like that. It's, you know, it's been self-reflective, and that's obviously enabled you to then grow your business.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. People, I still don't know when somebody asks me what I do. I still don't know what to say to them. It's still, but you know, at one point I had, you know, in the early days, you know, I spent a lot of my early career. It was networking. You know, I would go to the opening of a jam jar, you know, literally pop up, hey, you know, and do the whole kind of speech, and then as it grew. And at different times, I focused on different things. I've spent this 6 months this year working with 3 web companies to build our new website. So my job for 5 months was to go through 107,000 project images and about 8,500 videos. And for the entirety of that 5 months, I did very little else. And people say, what do you do? And I'd be like, I spend 8 hours a day looking at photos. I just...
You've basically answered it. People buy from people, and you are the face of that business, your business. And your business wouldn't be where it is right now without you. And that is the truth. And people have said that before about myself. And now I've got a business partner. I've changed the way that I do things. And I feel that he's got qualities that I haven't got, and vice versa. You don't realise, I mean, you probably don't want to say because you're being modest, but ultimately, you've got the vision, you've had the vision, you know you know how buildings should look out of, you know, what you want to build, and you know how your business ticks and the way that you want to run the business. So you have the vision. You're the leader of the pack, and that's it.
I did once. It was my ambition at the start to build something and work into a franchise model. So get like a central office with all of the design and technical abilities, and then create substations, you know, like sort of hubs throughout the UK and the Middle East. And I invested quite a lot of time and money into it. And I got to a point and I realized I was like, oh, this will only ever be as big as me stood in front of the next client. It'll never get further than that. You know, I think everybody buys one person's passion. It's that point of experience. And I recently, I kind of, after many years, I got to the end of myself and, you know, my you know, my sales pitches and stuff. And I say to people, look, now I'm going to send the car to pick you up. The car's going to take you to 3 projects, and you're going to get 20 minutes without anybody from project 1 there to ask the client any question you want. And they're also going to show you around their project. And I did that by basically always having a really good extended warranty. So like we will go back and fix things. Like I think the oldest thing we fixed recently was a 14-year-old kitchen worktop, which is way outside of the Constantino warranty. But they were lovely people, and they said we're really stuck. You know, it's like, do you know what? We'll come and it's really old, but we'll come and fix that for you. But doing so much for people on that level gives you access to the projects after a long period of time. So if someone comes in and they've got, I don't know, like a detached dormer bungalow and they want to turn it into a 2-story house, and it matches a project you did 5 years ago, you know, and you've recently replaced, like, I don't know, like an Astro light out of warranty that's cost like £52 in an hour's work and £8 in fuel. You know, you can say, oh, listen, I've got this client, they seem a lot like you, they got the same property, I'm sending them on the same journey you went on, could you give them the benefit of your experience? And I was hoping that would then further remove me from the picture. But it turns out if someone from the office rings the client and asks them if I can take up half a day of their life, they say no. It takes me to ring them up and arrange it. So yeah, it's never removed, you know?
It's interesting to hear that, actually, because of, I suppose, you remind me of someone else that owns a steel company that I know very well. Just the way that you're talking, your journey and everything else, right? And he says the same thing. If he leaves the company ultimately might still be there, you know, but it won't be as it won't have that. I mean, it'll probably lose me as a client for starters, because it's not Tim there, for example. So it's trying to train your staff, or surely you're going to need someone to take over you one day, or you're going to sort of create a board maybe, and then, you know, you see in the movies, then someone takes over the head poncho at the end.
You know, I imagine I've got this vision that I'll end up like a really elderly Colonel Sanders, and they'll just roll me out in a wheelchair and give me a couple of jabs or something in the neck. Wake him up! Wake him up! Yeah, but I was thinking about this recently. Gosh, I was 50 recently, and I had my first child at 48, and that there was an alteration definitely in sort of working practices, and how much I wasn't willing to miss out, you know, on you know, watching, you know, like a wonderful little girl grow up, and you know, I sort of look back over everything and reflected, and, you know, it is a wonderful journey. You know, it's this year, you know, we got, you know, last year, you know, you mentioned the SBID stuff, and, you know, we got shortlisted in the Global Architecture Awards, which is a new one for us, you know, so they're all really cool things to do and wonderful things to think about. Having children's altered that for me. And then I was thinking about the legacy on the back of this, you know, and my thought was, you know, I think I would just absolutely close it all down to keep everything exactly the way it is. Like, I don't think anyone would draw the composites the way that we do. And, you know, the sort of out of the box ideas of having buildings wrap around and having, you know, the guttering buried underground, so water runs through the, you know, literally saturates the outside of the building and creates like a symphony of waterfall. And I don't think I'd want to see those things butchered, you know, not for any sum of money. And money's also become really less important to me. You know, it's crazy. I sat you in an F-class limousine with a pair of Fenties. It's money's not important to me. I don't need this stuff. I'm a whole person. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's a funny
Changes you as a person, I suppose, that once you achieve your goal, like that 3 to 5 year goal, and you've got to where you are, that actually all of this material stuff as such is irrelevant. You've done exactly what you've dreamt to do. You've created beautiful buildings. You've changed so many people's lives. You've created an amazing business. This is what it sounds amazing, to be honest with you. You've had your daughter, and now your life has changed, and that's another 5-year plan now. It spins it on its head slightly, doesn't it?
I think what you say with the 5-year plans, that's really important to have. Though, you know, I found having those goals in place. So like my 0 to 5-year plan didn't start until about 2 years in, and the start of the 5-year plan was I want to win an award. I was trying to sum it up into like, how do I get to the point where I want, and I thought this stuff can only be judged by other people, so it's got to be winning awards. And the FMB it was the first award we ever won. Actually, we didn't even win the award, but because I was trying so hard, they created a special award for us. They didn't give it a with this little red
VIP.
plaque. It was like a special recognition of achievement award, and that was like really early on. Yeah, that would have been like 2012 or something. And then the next 5 year, it was, how does that look at the end? And it's really strange with these things, without any effort on my part or any conscious drive, having put it in place, they always came to fruition. And it's like the funniest thing. It's like, seems to be like, if you ask whatever your version of God is, even if you're your own personal God for something, you seem to get it, but the detail is in the small print. You got to be really careful about how you ask for it, I think.
Yeah,
But
it's manifestation, guys. We talked about this, haven't we?
Yeah, we
Asking
did.
the universe, but again, it's whether you believe in that or not. It's putting it out there and then having that plan and that structure, and then I think you just automatically believe in it, don't you?
Yeah,
and then
I
that's
think
your
so.
goal, and it does things seem to happen.
And it's reaching for it, isn't it? Because I've never really had a plan. So we started out in 2000 I think it's probably about 2005 actually now, but IPSUM started in 2011. I never really had a plan, and ever since, and things have just naturally, and the company's naturally grown, and things have happened, and things have gone well. But recently I got offered the opportunity to go on, you mentioned it earlier about mentoring. I got offered the opportunity to go on a course, it's a Help to Grow course, which is done by the university, and I thought it's probably a bit of a startup thing. I didn't really think I'd sort of get much out of it, but actually, as part of it, they talk quite a lot about the vision. And there's a book called Vivid Vision, which I was recommended to read. And I'm not a big reader, to be fair, but I read this book, and it talked about a 3-year plan and implementing it, but also the discussions that we've had within the peer group has been really valuable. And although it's not been sort of particularly just about my business, it started to prompt thoughts about where I want to be next. I'm implementing, a strategy now to grow the business, and I've got this like sort of 3-year plan now where I've sort of reached for the stars a little bit, and there's a real sort of growth strategy in place. But it's been really interesting, and you mentioned the finance side of the mentor that I've got as part of this program. So I'm only like 2 hours in of it's free mentoring, but these guys give their time up to be mentors, and he's a finance director, and that has been, you mentioned it earlier about the finances. I've always been really good at managing the day-to-day finances. I've got a really, stable company, good cash flow, but I've never been very good at planning finances for the future, and the investments. And that's why I touched on earlier about how did you sort of get to those points? Was it speculative? And I think because I've not had that structure in place with a finance director or somebody that's really dealing with the finance and looking at the numbers, it's sort of stunting my growth a little bit. So yeah, when you talk about plan, that again really resonates with me, and the plan that I've now got in place for the future. But yeah, I mean, you've always had a plan, haven't you? So,
Well, you always got to have a kind of plan, don't you, in life, I suppose. And then if things change, you move your plans around, and then you concentrate on another plan. As long as you do what you do best and you do what you love, I will never change what I do. It'll be in construction. I love building. So whatever I continue to do with whatever plans go, you're never promised tomorrow, right? Everyone will nod their heads to that one. But having a dream and a plan, you should always have, right?
It's love of building as well, isn't it? If you love what you're doing, what you're creating, like that's the big part of it, isn't it?
Listening to Dorian, I will listen to people and give them my time, and it's great, and being inspired by certain people. I'm gonna be a bit honest, there's not a lot of people that sort of prick my ears up. Dorian, you definitely have. I'm gonna be honest. So this is something that I think you need to give to the industry, is that I need to hear more of you. Yeah.
I'm bored most of the time,
and that's where your sales pitch comes from. And like you were saying, you're a salesperson's like dream. I can hear that, but you delivered, and so then you deserve that kind of respect. You've had that dream. So yeah, it's important for us and the new generation to be inspired by the likes of yourself, right? As well as you, Aidan.
I think it's been honest, isn't it? Like you're being really honest about the journey, and it's and it is hard work, and it'll resonate with everybody that listens to this podcast. So yeah, I completely agree with David. I think what you're doing is amazing, and the way that you sort of come across.
Articulate it.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Yeah. You should be sat here, to be fair.
Yeah.
You're welcome in.
Anytime you want. I was just thinking a really important. I'm trying to think of those things that like the seismic shifts, and there was a point that I got to, and I thought I was always trying to work out who I worked for. Do I work for the clients? Do I work for the people that I work with? Like, do I work for myself? And I realized eventually, do you know what? The person that I got to primarily work for is the tax man. And they've got to be the person that I'm happiest to work for as well. And they're quite good business partners because if you structure your business in a way where you've actually got the money for tax, it can become a really cheap loan. They're really easy to negotiate with, and they've got the lowest rates of any lender. So like that tax bill money, if you've got something you want to invest in the short term, you can negotiate with them and have an incredible sum of money for at really low cost interest. And to actually consider them a trading partner, so I always consider them a trading partner. So when I'm running the financial schedules and I'm cutting each section of the business, and a lot of people don't do this. So like running a spreadsheet for a project, I'm going to have my basics on there. I'm going to have office time, engineering, architects fees, carpentry, plumbing, electrics, whatever goods we need. And then people will often put the profit margin in. They'll be like, all right, okay, this is, it's whatever the percentage is, whatever the company works on, or somebody decides they want to earn during a project. So, if it's like £100,000 project, want to make 20%, right? Get that in there, adjust the figures around it. But actually working out, like back engineering the figures and working out what is exactly the VAT, like what is going on after the payment and the reclaim. And what exactly is going to be the tax on this if I'm running 10 projects a year, and this project's taking 3 months, and I've got all my back end figures, so I can break it down into each project with my projected turnover. This year I'm projected to turn over that amount. This is my percentage. What's going to be the tax on it? And bring that into the actual figures. This is the one that bites, and I've watched a friend of mine do really well, really quickly, and no one explained this to him. And he had the same knock on the door that I had. I think it was 2016, and a guy with a body-worn camera. We'd moved premises, and I hadn't touched base with the accountants, and I hadn't got a bit of mail. And he knocked on the door, and he said, I've come to collect for the HMRC. And I said, oh, no worries. I'll write you a check. How much do you want? And it was something ridiculous, like £567,000. And I was like, what? I've got to make a phone call. And I phoned the accountant, and they said, you've caught up on your section 455 tax. But they said, don't worry. Once you paid it, you can reclaim it in a 2-year period. And I was like, why has nobody told me this? And it was on that day I was like, right, this is my new employer. This is my new trading partner. And the guy used to laugh at me. It was the same guy, like, even into like 2019, he'd be like, oh, he'd just ring up, he'd ring my personal mobile. Dorian, you guys are late paying. I'm like, yeah, I know. Is what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pay you in November, because I can use that money right now. And you would be a bit like, yeah, you'd be like, you can't do this. I'm like, I can. You can just fine me, right? You give me a small fine, and I pay a daily percentage on it, like, whatever it is. It's a couple of percent, but it's a really cheap loan. So I think setting up for the future is a really good bit of knowledge. Like make the HMRC your partner. Like, learn to work with them, learn to trade with them. Never call them at 8 a.m. on a Monday. Like, do it at 2 o'clock on a Tuesday afternoon. Never on a Friday, because they just want to get the hell out of the building. And just remember, everyone is people, right? So you've got to know the times to approach people. It's like with a client, I'll never answer the phone to somebody who's just moved into a house after 9 o'clock on a Friday, because the chances are they're drunk and they put the dishwasher on and somebody's forgot to turn on the tap, and they've just been through like 12 months of stress, and they're going to unload on me. So just wait until Saturday afternoon, So it's knowing when and where to deal with people and how to trade with them. And
Sociology skills right
Yeah,
there.
but that sort of angle with the tax, that is genius.
Yeah, that is
I've always seen HMRC as the enemy.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
taking
I think
my
everyone
money,
does,
but
don't
that
they?
angle
Actually
is
be your friend, yeah.
genius. I think we've all learnt a lot from that. Thank you, Dorian.
Yeah, that's valuable.
One thing we wanted to touch on as well is you've obviously worked in various places. So what's the story behind moving the business across regions? Did that just happen naturally, or was that always a vision?
Right. Okay. So this is this was networking. So my policy has always been the no word is naughty. Never say no. If somebody rings up and says, "Listen, can you float an island in the Mediterranean?" The answer is yes. Like, don't say no. And I met, like I said, I would literally go to the opening of anything, whatever it was. And I'm not interested in sports, and I don't particularly like polo, but I would make sure that, that I was at those events. And I think all cities have, we have a sort of like a Cardiff life, Bristol life, London, there's all these sort of things, and, get to know the people, go to the events. And I met someone there randomly, and I took them to an awards. I took a bunch of guys from Grower and Gaggenau, and I took this other person who was a PR person. Said, "Would you like to come to an awards?" And we used to take out a floor of the W Hotel the Melia Hotel on the Strand. Get a table at the awards. Sort of like get everyone, bring the families. Have the rooms, like comp people really well, and they had a friend that had started working for a steel billionaire, and they just bought a property, and they said, "Oh, do you know anyone that does property?" And because I'd just taken this person to awards, they were like, "Oh yeah, am I really good?" Because obviously they're PR, right? So they do this really good backstory. And then I end up meeting these people and getting on really well with them. And they were relocating to other countries. And the question was asked, do you guys operate in the Middle East, I said, yeah, we absolutely do. We operate in the Middle East, and I can be there tomorrow. And that's what I did. I flew there, I set up an office, and yeah, we ended up doing stuff there. And the south of France, I happened to really like the south of France. So, I went to the south of France, and I met some people. And then weirdly, I was like, oh, it failed completely. I don't speak French. And nobody really wanted to talk to me. But I met a guy in Cardiff. He just bought a house in the south of France. He's like, "Oh, do you guys work in the south of France?" It's like, "Hell yeah, I just been in Plan de la Tour." He's like, "The house is in Plan de la Tour." It's like, wow, yeah, it's just a cheeky little drive into Saint-Tropez. And yeah, so I think it's just that thing of being like, how much of my life do I want to spend on an aeroplane? I really like that. I just thought it was brilliant. You jump in a car, you get to Heathrow, you jump on an aircraft, you get your own little cabin, you work for 8 hours, you get out, you go, you do the stuff, you sleep in the afternoon, swim in the evening, back to work and yeah, it was just that thing, never say no, I'll work anywhere, I'll do anything. Sounds a bit nuts now I say it, actually.
Sounds amazing.
That's inspiring.
Yeah. There's literally no limits, I suppose.
No.
Yeah.
What's important to you now, Dorian, and how you run the business after everything you've built and grown?
Gosh, I think the thing that's become prevalent is having a manageable life. And for me, having a manageable life has been managing expectations. So I'll always be, although I still say yes, I will actually think about it before I say it. I'll think like, not can I do it? Because my experience has been that we can do, as people and as humans, we can do pretty much anything we turn our minds to. But like, not can I do it? Do I want to do it? And then in deciding if I want to do it, and sometimes do I need to do it? Because I still have to do things that I don't want to do. There's things that I need to do and we have to do for the company, So I'll have that moment of what am I willing to put before myself, and then managing the people's expectations around it, just getting everybody to understand. So like, don't promise people the world when they come and work, which was, I always did, because I like to get people that worked in other places, so I would promise the world and sometimes under deliver, and that would cause, discord with people, and with the clients, just managing that expectation. So the thing that I value over everything today is peace of mind. Like, how is my sleep hygiene? Am I going to bed at the time that I want? Am I waking up when my body wakes me up, or am I being woken up by anxiety at 3:30 in the morning. This is never going to work. What have I done? So like each thing has become really deliberate. Each decision, each action. Yeah. I think just be thinking about things a bit more. And certainly, yeah, the important thing is peace of mind, which it took me 2 decades to even understand what peace of mind was because I'd never experienced it. I spoke to somebody the other day. They said, look, we really like you guys, but we're thinking about doing the project ourselves. And I said to the guy, I was like, oh my God, like, what is wrong with you? I get really well paid for what I do. I drive supercars, I just like, and I don't get paid enough. You're insane. Don't do it.
Yeah, people don't
Yeah.
realise,
Yeah.
taking something like that, on their own.
You hear that
You
a lot
can
though, don't
see
you?
it, can't you? You're gonna
Yeah.
be like, do you like a relationship?
Yeah.
Do you like your
Of
family?
course, kids to hate you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think peace of mind, ultimately, yeah. But I think this is a really personal journey to everyone. And at the start of it, it was about ego, and it was building something that I just had that incessant need inside me to say, hey, I wanted to be someone, I wasn't happy, I wasn't happy with what I'd been dealt with in life. I was restless, irritable, and discontent. And I thought I would find happiness through prestige, power, pomp, and ceremony and possessions. And it did work out for a while. I mean, it really did. I loved it, and then I grew through it as a person, and I got to appreciate that peace of mind. Is the thing that I want today. It wasn't 20 years ago. I wanted I wanted the pressure and the stress, and when people would love their project, it would be the only time that I was happy. It would be like, oh God, these people, they love me. They didn't love me. They like their project and their job, I see them in the street and they'd be like, who the hell is that guy, Yeah, so I think, yeah, it's a really personal journey, isn't it? And it's a lifetime.
Yeah.
In order to do this well, it's a lifestyle and a lifetime.
So with your whole experience and all of these beautiful buildings in different countries that you've obviously built, what's your favourite one? And why?
I'm thinking in terms that I've got a favorite experience and a favorite building. And then also another favorite, which was a building thing. So my favorite building would be the one that won. I think it won the FMB award this year. It's a building called Skyfall, and it was a concept. So the concept was written on a plane. It was a press pack was written on the plane. So I was like, this building is going to be an expression of what we are, and it's. I can't remember. I think there was 325 kilometers of cable there. So it was the largest like control for smart home installation that had ever been done at the time. In the garden there was a speaker buried every 5 meters. And you could also talk in the gardens. You could say, I want to watch a movie, and it would light up down to the movie theater at the bottom of the garden.
Wow.
Down. And there was like an entire spa, but everywhere you went, the walls within the composite of the wall was a 360 millimeter deep sub. So when you hit the button on it, the entire building and this building was designed through, even the brick walls were lined with metal frames, so they would vibrate when the speakers lit up. So whatever wall you leaned against, you could get a massage experience. And in the kitchen there was a really cool, there was a Molteni Dada island, and it had the Bloomberg Bank prototype for the up and down on the breakfast bar, cocktail bar, breakfast bar, cocktail bar. But there was also a specialist cook section, and we had Gaggenau make the appliances for it specially. So it was indoor barbecue, gas watt teppanyaki. We had Bocce create like £150,000 swag replica of the one in the V&A museum. We bought a barn in Alabama, and we shipped 390 square meters of aged barn oak to Ireland and had it treated. And it had a treehouse sauna that you entered through the floor. So how cool! Remember the old submarines where you had like the hole and they went in through the underneath? I was like, how cool would it be to do that with a sauna? Because hot air rises, right? And when you open a sauna door, you always leave it. So I was like, we'll put the door in the bloody floor with a fireman's pole.
Oh,
my
yes.
God.
You'll never be annoyed, because I don't know if you guys get that. You go for a sauna and there's always some guy who opens the door and leaves it like 3 inches ajar.
Yeah.
So it was thinking through all of those challenges, like how can you never ever be like, because little things used to upset me, like the sauna door. How can I get over myself with that? Like, how can I design around those issues? And there were just so many special touches to it, like having zero guttering, like, so everything was in the floor. Everything was connected through, and it was just a magical experience to invent each section of it. And we did the water rhythm ceiling there for the first time and worked out. So it was, I think there were only 2 people at the time that could do Armani Rocker. And we did a water rhythm ceiling. We worked with Masoni to create a special wallpaper. But then we worked out that if we hit it with a hidden spotlight, when it hit the water with the ceiling, it would make the rest of the room look like it was underwater with the shimmer. So it was this constant journey of being like seeing the world differently. I discovered that I went when the electric was off, and I put my iPhone down on the sink to use the bathroom, and the iPhone hit it, and it just exploded. And it was living in something, eating and breathing it 24 hours a day. And, we just used to have this thing, we used to like, it would be like, be Skyfall. Like, don't be in Skyfall. Don't be of Skyfall. Be Skyfall. When you go there, breathe the building, breathe the surroundings. And we ripped the building to bits 3 times. We decimated it. We were like, oh my God, we can do this better. So the original engineering was done to support that. It was built as a steel frame. My favorite installation was Belgrave Square. It was there were 112 steps from the basement to the 6th story. It was like 150 million pound residential, and there was some guy. He was a lord. He died in a helicopter crash, and when they sold the building, they took the chandeliers out. They wanted about 3 million for the chandeliers, so we worked with Floss to create a 16.8 meter long chandelier made of glass jars. So they made the glass jars, and we had to put it into sections, and we had to put 7 lifts of scaffolding through the building to be able to haul the chandelier up through the middle. But it's what I didn't realize, and it hung off a glass dome right up in the roof of the building, but I didn't realize that we could only install it in one piece. I misdesigned it. So when it was all put together, it was 16.8 meters long, and it was only 4 meters into the building where it started to go up into the scaffolding chute. It took us 4 days to lift it into the building, but because we were working on Belgrave Square between the Syrian and Spanish embassies, they had armed police. So in the night, we could leave the front door open, and the armed police would guard the chandelier. And I just thought that was brilliant. And we'd come in every day. We'd have a person on each lift, and they'd hold it with the gloves, and we'd slowly crank it up. We'd just bring it up, and then we'd make the adjustments and alterations and bring it up, because it was going down the stairs into the street. It was wrapping around in front of the Syrian embassy. But that was a really wonderful experience. And then working in Dubai, we needed, like, I was hundreds of thousands of tons of sand, and it was really cool to rent a barge, like a city building barge, like to ring a company in and bring in like hundreds of thousands and just stand there on the beach. Yep, dump it there, and just you'd hear this, you'd hear the mechanism, and then the water would explode, and it was like, gosh, I feel like something here. I'm having an experience.
Yeah, it's like a construction superhero.
I know, yeah.
James Bond of
You know?
construction.
I was going to say, if you're not inspired to get into
You
construction
need,
after this,
if you haven't already, you need to write a
unbelievable.
book. You have to write a book.
Or a TV show. I want to see all these
Do
places.
you see what I mean?
Yeah.
I would like to listen more.
When will this be on Netflix?
Here we go.
Yeah,
Yeah, this is it.
And fine. I mean, if that's not it, Dorian, finally, what are you most proud of? Is it individual projects, or is it the empire or the awards, or more personal?
Oh, do you know why? I tear up when I say this. I was walking down a street once, and a guy came on. I recognized him. He was a client, and he said, I want to thank you. He said, when we did our project, he said, like, our family was literally falling to pieces. And he said, we were going to get divorced. And he said, you literally saved our family. He said, like, the way you designed that space and you forced us to interact. He said, you brought us back together. And it was, it still does me emotionally. And I went once. It was before I gave up drinking, and I'd been on a prestigious bender, and I'd been invited to a client's wedding, and I didn't want to go. I had a christening in the morning. I could barely walk. And somebody said, oh, Lord Paul's going to be there. And the guy's a steel billionaire at the wedding. I was like, I'm going to go to the wedding. And they did all the speeches, and I'd gone there to meet someone, to network. And the guy stood up. He said, oh, I only want to thank 2 people. He said, I'd like to thank my dad, who can't be here today because he passed away. And he said, I'd like to thank Dorian for Project One for giving us the greatest space to grow in. And just those 2, they that's all I need on a bad day,
Right.
That's
I
amazing,
felt that
I know.
passion.
Gosh, yeah.
I felt that passion.
Wow.
That's what it's all about, though, isn't it? Changing people's
That's
lives.
why you're award winning.
Absolutely.
And just F&B's lucky to have you, mate. To be fair.
Well, I wish I bought a Kleenex now, I just think I need one.
Just use that lovely t-shirt.
Yeah.
Oh, honestly, Dorian, that was
Yeah.
that was so inspiring,
That's good
guys. I
stuff.
mean, I could
So
see
inspiring,
you both
yeah.
mesmerised as well. It was
yeah.
just
100%, yeah.
I've met my new hero.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'm coming to Wales.
And if you're listening and have been inspired, let us know what you're taking away from today's episode. Just email us at buildup@fmb.org.uk. And if you're a builder in the UK, don't forget that FMB members get free access to FMB's Master Builder magazine, full of stories just like Dorian's. Visit fmb.org.uk/membership to learn more. Dorian, before we go, where can people find you and Project One online if they want to find out more about you?
We are project1.design.
Fabulous. That'll do us. And Aidan and David, how can everyone connect with you as well?
You can find us on ipsumuk.com. Our socials are linked through from our main website.
Nest Building Group, and just click on our socials. Thank you.
Fabulous. Well, thanks for joining us on the Build Up podcast brought to you by the FMB. If you're looking to save time in your business, we've got a free FMB approved quotation template ready to download now. Visit fmb.org.uk/quote, or if you're watching this video, there's a link below. As always, drop us a line at buildup@fmb.org.uk, and don't forget to like, subscribe and press the bell icon so you're notified when the next episode goes live. Join Aidan, David and me next time on the Build Up podcast, where we'll have more tips and ideas to help your business. And a big thank you again to Dorian for joining us today. We'll see you next time.